Okay, hello, and we are right on the money. Happy Thursday to everybody. If you're here, say hello. Let me know where you are tuning in from. Just want to make sure, yes, this is like going to be such a good day. I'm like on it. Okay, so I can see your comments in there, but I'm so excited for today. Today is kicking off the first week of the Healing Inflammation series that we're going to do. It's going to be a 4-part series, and I'm going to show you a little because I'm doing a bonus 2 bonus things that I'll be sharing with you that I decided to add in that I knew that just would totally bring this whole series together. So I'm really excited to share it with you and kick it off today. Let me know where you are coming in from and what is good in your world. And I got some fun slides and images. I think I alluded to that last week, which I think is really going to help this stick, other than just being like, oh, omega-3s, eat some walnuts and stuff like that. So really will help you know how you can use nutrition and exercise to help manage inflammation, help manage your pain, and stop reaching for the Aleve, the NSAIDs, and going and getting steroid injections. I'm going to be talking about why we want to avoid that. And even just today, I was talking to a client and she just got her injection, and we had a conversation around that. So today we're going to be talking about how you can use the power of fats and why fats are so important. And when you can eat them, you can actually, it's such a critical component of, getting pain-free, helping manage inflammation, autoimmunity, and also too, if you've ever heard about like free radicals or like oxidation into there, it leads to wrinkles into there. So we don't want to have free radicals in our body. We don't want to have oxidation of our cells when they become, I think of like, things become corroded, or if like you've ever seen pipes or anything where things get all clogged or kind of crusted over, that's what can happen to your cells when you are consuming the wrong fats. And your cells make up, all the tissues of your body. So your joints, your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, your heart, your vessel walls. So this is really, really, really important. So what we're going to cover today is I'm going to talk about the fats that you should eat and the ones that you should avoid. And then we're going to talk about also too, how to cook with them right. Because some people are, maybe they're choosing healthier fats, but then they'll go ahead and cooking with them or frying with them or just cooking them at temperatures that they weren't meant to be cooked with, and then it actually turns them rancid and causes oxidation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, why fats are so important when it comes to your health, reversing and managing pain, especially when it comes to chronic illness, and then also the effects of aging. Like who doesn't want to age, get wrinkles, and all those things. So you want to feel vibrant. And then so again, I have a couple slides for you. I'm going to walk you through. It's like a nice little flow chart to really so you can see what is going on in your body and the process of inflammation, what actually causes inflammation, and then how when you eat certain foods, how they can affect that cascade of inflammation. I think it's really, really helpful. I'm a visual person. If you're a visual person, pop in below, but I'm all about seeing demos and seeing pictures versus someone just telling me like, oh, eat this, eat that, or just kind of like spewing things at you. But when you can really see behind it, I think for yourself, you can start to put the pieces together, and it really helps you, I think, solidify when people are needing to make changes for their health or take certain actions versus kind of just getting a list of, oh, these are the do's or these are the don'ts, versus really, when you really see the process. I think for me, it builds a level of respect and reverence for what we ask of our bodies and how we need to fuel them so that they can kind of allow us to do what we want to do and also have them functioning optimally for a very, very, very long time. And then also how you can use food, herbs, and exercise instead of, again, those meds and NSAIDs and steroids to control inflammation. And then we'll talk about some of those. Oh, hi, Susan. Nice to see you on. So glad you made it. And then we're going to talk about omega. So if you've heard about, omega-3s and omega-6s, and I'm sure you've seen it all over the place, get your omega-3s. We're going to be talking about those, and specifically where people get it wrong is they don't have the right balance, and why the balance is so key in general, but specifically around pain and inflammation. And again, rather than just giving you a list of things, I really want you to be able to get an understanding behind the why. If you know me, I'm all about the why versus just kind of spewing the how and the what to you. and also so you can understand the costs of continuing to eat these very inflammatory foods, and not just the inflammatory foods, but it has to do with an inflammatory lifestyle. So the stress, the sleep, the exercise, all those things. So this is, a key component to it. You always want to think of like your health. Like I always say, there's, when you think of, building a balanced and better body, there's kind of three big components to it. It's, your beliefs, how your mindset is set around things, the biochemistry. So that's when we think about like, nutrition and hormones and some of the things we're going to talk about today when we talk about the pathways. And when these things get off, your blood sugar and stuff like that, that's where we start to see imbalances and breakdown, or, accelerated illness, or we just can't heal as quickly and perform the way we want to. And then last thing is kind of biomechanical. So that's more structurally how your body is, your posture, your movement, your mobility, also the structural integrity of something like your gut or your joints and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then also a couple people put in some really great questions in the group. So I'm going to answer those. Someone asked a question about, what's the best diet for kind of brain health, anxiety. And then someone else asked the question of, are whole dairy fats better, or is non-dairy fat? And she's coming from a place that I know she does Weight Watchers. So I'm going to give an answer to that. And a couple other things as well. And again, please feel free, as I'm going through this, pop questions in the chat. I'm going to be asking for some feedback and some questions. I really want this to be super interactive. And again, welcome if you are new to the group. I'm so excited to have you here. And my name is Dr. Yvonne Castillo. I am an integrative pain specialist, doctor of physical therapy, and I specifically work with women over 40, helping them get pain-free and free from fatigue naturally, so that they can live their active and unlimited lives that they deserve. So let's get started here. So again, if you're here, I see a couple of you on, which is so exciting. So if you're here, say hello. And again, if you have any questions, just pop them on as we go. So understanding the impact of poor food choices, I think is really important when you, again, think of how you're preparing meals, what you're reaching for and stuff like that, and really understanding how those choices are impacting if, you can't sleep at night, you have an achy back, it's super stiff, you get super swollen, you maybe notice like skin rashes or, bloating or gas and constipation, all those type of things that come into play with the food choices that you make. Also, oh, hi, Sharon, nice to see you on. I always love seeing you on. And then also when you have the healthy balance of fats in your cell membrane, so your cell has a membrane that it controls what comes in and what comes out. And a lot of people will say like, oh, you are what you eat, but you really are what you can absorb and what you can excrete. If you can actually get the nutrients into your cell. And then also you want to be able to get out the bad toxins, kind of the exhaust in through there. It's really, really, really important. And that's where the breakdown is for a lot of people is, for some reason, some imbalance in their body, they can't get the nutrients in, the vitamins, the minerals, the cofactors. And then also they can't get the toxins out. So that's where they're inflamed. That's when they're achy. That's when they're sore. That's when they're swollen. That's when they've got, brain fog, fatigue. All those types of things are the consequence of kind of some of the things that we eat. And then also kind of our emotional state and also our physical state, how much we're moving or not moving, all those things. So we need to have that steady flow of good nutrients in and then toxins out. So when your fats are balanced in the body, you are able to produce the right mix of chemicals. And we're going to be going through that pathway today that controls pain and inflammation. It keeps your hormone balanced, which is so, so, so important, whether you are premenopausal, perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal, so, so, so important. Your hormones are, kind of the orchestrators of your body. And when there's imbalances in the hormones, things just don't function properly. Also, it keeps your blood sugar steady. And we are going to have a special talk in 2 weeks about blood sugar. And this is so important. I'm going to give a little bit of a sneak preview tonight, but this is such an important thing that is so commonly overlooked. But when you have dysregulation of your blood sugar, it really impacts pain, inflammation, your healing capacity, your energy, and overall functioning. So Really, really important. And then also when your fats are balanced, it also helps make the right mix of neurotransmitters to keep your brain chemistry balanced. And it helps keep your mood and your focus. And so you're happy and you're alert. And Kia asked the question about what diet is best, for anxiety. And I know Linda also asked the question around, okay, what can I do to help with my cognitive function? And this is something that's so important. It's one thing to be physically impaired, not to have energy. But when your brain starts to go, that is pretty severe. If you don't have your cognitive abilities, it's a big loss of independence. And I've witnessed, hopefully you haven't, but most people have, experienced or seen someone deal with cognitive impairment, whether that's progressive dementia or Alzheimer's. It's really, really sad. So keeping our brains healthy is so key, and fats play such a critical role in that. And I'll be talking about that today. So how does that sound? Do those things sound good? Do you guys want that? You want to have those good things in your body. I would love to know. Pop in your comments in the chat. Okay, so how are fats related to pain and inflammation? So you have, and I'll be pulling up a chart in just a little bit, but there's something called arachidonic acid, and it is a type of omega-6. You have a bunch of different type of omegas. There's omega-9s, there's omega-7s. But today we're going to be mostly focusing on your omega-3s and your omega-6s. So arachidonic acid is a type of omega-6 fat, and that is really at the core of the body's inflammation producing mechanism. So while arachidonic acid is an omega-6 fat, it's very inflammatory. There's also something called EPA, which is anti-inflammatory. So AA, arachidonic acid, is inflammatory. EPA is anti-inflammatory. And when you're looking at kind of the ratios in somebody's kind of fat status, we're looking at those ratios between arachidonic acid and EPA. So the ratio of your omega-6s to your omega-3s. And I've got a chart for that, and I've got a bunch of different handouts that I normally give my clients to work through this. So again, as we know, and you've heard this, I'm sure, over and over again, inflammation is really the heart of all diseases. Anytime you hear an itis, arthritis, tendinitis, colitis, gastritis, all those things, that's what inflammation is. So you will find, so the foods that you'll find arachidonic acid is, and with the standard American diet, it is so common, it's ubiquitous. People are getting so many omega-6s. So the arachidonic acid is found in things like meats, in poultry, in milk, in eggs, and in peanuts. And then in a few kind of plant-based foods also have it. So, and also peanuts by far are probably the greatest source of arachidonic acid. So if you like that PB&J, it's time to swap it out for something else, nut butters or something like that. So that will be a healthier choice. Also, peanuts have aflatoxin, which is a mold. So they have the propensity to have mold in them. So peanuts are not great. It's one of the top food allergens as well. So peanuts, try to find something else. And then so EPA, so those are omega-3s. Those are going to be found in things like fish, marine algae, especially like the brown or the blue-green algae, because you want to think it's just like the chain thing. So the fish eat the algae. That's how the fish actually get the EPA. But you're not really going to see it on any sort of land plants and stuff like that. And then purslane has by far the greatest amount of EPA content, and that's a land vegetable. And it's a wild plant that grows in some areas. And sometimes you can kind of like grow it on your own. I know, Sharon, you're a gardener. I'm a gardener. If you're a gardener, yay. If you're a gardener, pop that in. But you can have it, and it's a super great source of EPA, and it's really, really delicious and a great thing to toss in your smoothies. So it's maybe something you want to jot on down, look into that. I think I actually have a link for where you can get it that I'll pop in there. Remind me if I forget. Lee and everybody else is on. So what are some of the highly inflammatory fats that you want to avoid? So you want to avoid your things like your trans fats, and trans fats are things like your margarines, your lard, your shortenings. So these are the things that tend to be in a lot of processed and baking goods. And the process is they take, polyunsaturated fats, and what they do is they hydrogenate them. And basically that's what takes them from being in like a liquid state to being in a solid state. And they're really, really bad. They're actually banned by the US, so we're not supposed to have them. and then inflammatory oils. And some of the inflammatory oils, purslane. So it's P-U-R-L, P-U-R-S-L-A-N-E, purslane. And I have a link for where you can find it. And I also have a link, and you can remind me because I'm going to be mentioning some herbs. It's called Mountain Rose Herbs, but I'll put the link in there too. But that's a great place where you can get a lot of these herbs. When we talk about bone health and osteoporosis in a couple weeks, I'm going to be mentioning a lot of really good herbs. So I'll make sure that I'll pop it in here, but then I'll also do a separate post as well. Yeah, you're so welcome. Absolutely. Thank you for asking for the clarification. Okay, so oils that you want to avoid. And I was so surprised when I was doing some research and I was writing the blog and getting this ready, is that so many registered dietitians, nutritionists, a lot of them were touting a lot of these oils of, oh, these are great. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no. Like the research is telling this, these are not good. They're not healthy for you. They're very inflammatory. They go rancid. And even they had a lot of the cooking points are wrong. So I was really surprised to see that. So again, if you have pen and paper, you may want to write these down, but I'll make sure I'll put this in the group and in a post. But so things like your corn oil, your canola oil, so it's also called rapeseed oil, cottonseed oil, soy oil, sunflower oil, sapphire oil, grapeseed oil, and rice bran oil. You really should not be consuming those oils, whether they're heated or not. That's where people run into a lot of issues, especially it's cheap. A lot of these oils are cheap. So when people are going and getting French fries and people are frying stuff, most of the time they're frying it in canola oils. Really, really bad. What happens is these get oxidized. Also too, they're going to be in those clear containers. So simply just getting sunlight into them breaks down the oils and they go rancid, which is toxic. Again, you want to think of if you've got a pipe and it's getting corroded, that's what's happening inside of your body. So really important to avoid those types of things. And those are the main ones. And even, a lot of times people are cooking with olive oil and stuff like that. And you really don't want to be doing that. It has a low cook temperature as well. I mean, if you are steaming things and then you want to, put some olive oil on it a little bit, but most people, again, especially with the talk of like blue zones and Mediterranean diet, I've heard people like, oh, have a cup of olive oil a day, like drink a cup of olive oil. And they tout like, oh, this person lived to 100 and they did this. And it's like, oh, again, it's not a one size fits all type of a thing. So I'm going to, let me see, I'm just going to share my screen here. Because we'll go through this now. We'll go through the charts and I want to walk you guys through the cascade of what actually happens when your body starts to become inflamed. And again, just pop your questions in if you have any. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and I'll make sure that I'm out of the way. Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm seeing that starting to show. Okay, so what we're looking at here, so if you have a cell and stuff like that, within the membrane of the cell, this is where you can see, and this is a mast cell. So mast cells, if you've ever heard of them, those are the type of immune cells, inflammatory cells that produce something called histamines. You probably heard of histamines. We're coming up into spring season here and, histamines, allergies, all that type of stuff. So those are your mast cells are the ones that will produce histamines in through there. So and we're going to take kind of like a really big overview here as I walk you through this and through there. So mast cells, again, are a part of your immune system, and they're responsible for producing these histamines as in allergies, but they're also in other cascades when your body's fighting off infections and through there. And so what they produce are these things, and you're going to see these on other charts under there, but something called these inflammatory cytokines. So you have your leukotrienes and your thromboxanes. These tend to be the more aggressive cytokines that creates more inflammation. This is kind of like mild inflammation. This is major inflammation. And your arachidonic acid, again, those omega-6s are going to be what kind of sits at the top there, causing these things. So And then let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is the cascade here. We have on your left-hand side, like the process that goes through when you consume omega-6s, it's called linoleic acid, and then alpha linoleic acid is your omega-3s. So when we start to see, so that was what we looked at in the last one, your membrane phospholipids in there. This is an enzyme that speeds up, but it basically creates arachidonic acid. And this goes down to create, again, you see these fires right here, which is, these are your inflammation. Your major inflammation is going to be your leukotrienes. Your more mild inflammation is going to be your thromboxanes. And when we start to talk about your NSAIDs and steroids in a little bit, you'll see how they act on those different pathways. And then also I have a slide that shows you where those different anti-inflammatory foods and herbs are going to act, and some key nutrients that you need to keep your inflammation in under control and through there. So arachidonic acid is very inflammatory, and it is kind of the step before these kind of fires that you see, those cytokines that you see at the bottom and through there, your leukotrienes and your thromboxanes, and the enzymes that you kind of see in green and through there, enzymes just speed up the reaction. So you don't have to memorize them and stuff like that. There'll be no test. You don't have to be a biochemist, but just know that enzymes catalyze reactions. They kind of speed them up. So anytime there's enzymes missing or they get blocked, it could either slow down or it could stop something from proceeding forward. So very, very important. Okay, so arachidonic acid, again, is found in any type of flesh food. So again, your meats, with the exception of fish. It's also high in things like eggs, dairy, and peanuts. And the arachidonic acid, it isn't bad on its own per se. It has important functions, but there's no need to go out and kind of seek to ingest it because the body already takes a lot of it in, or it can make it when your body needs to have it. And so what we see on kind of this omega-6 side and through here is you have your omega-6s, your linoleic acid, and it gets converted to something called GLA here, and then DGLA, and then it comes down into arachidonic acids in through there. And you can see this little firefighter guy here, and he helps put this out and kind of keeps that from going forward into there. So if you have this balance of your omega-6s and your omega-3s, it stops this downward cascade of inflammation from happening. And that is the goal. And I'll be sharing with you how you can do it. And again, being on that standard American diet, the highly processed foods, these animal products, vegetable products, all those things will skew it so you have more omega-6s than your omega-3s, and which is what we want to avoid. So when we see this kind of this side, your leukotrienes, those are the big inflammation. So that's like major inflammation in your body. And then we have mild inflammation in your body right here. So if you take an NSAID, so those are non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, something like Aleve, naproxen, Tylenol, aspirin, they prevent the conversion of this arachidonic acid down into a thromboxane in through there. Actually, let me see. I think I have it on the next. Okay, here we go. Here is the one that's showing the drug interaction in through here. So when you take NSAIDs, it basically blocks this conversion down into this pathway. So that's why, NSAIDs can be effective if you have like a milder inflammation versus, really massive inflammation or long-standing chronic inflammation in through there. So that's why when, people, take it acts on it, but it's only short-lived. But it doesn't do anything to manage the bigger inflammation on the other side. But the problem is when you take the NSAIDs, it also kind of cuts out your natural body's ability to modulate inflammation. So what happens is if you've kind of killed off, your body's own ability to fight off the inflammation, okay, you take your NSAID, the inflammation goes down, but you've also killed off your firefighters that normally do the job. The next time that you get inflamed again, there's nothing to help you out. You no longer have an innate ability within your body. You don't have, the tools or, to basically put it out. That's why a lot of people will find that they need more and more and more, Tylenol, Aleve, they need it more frequently. And then unfortunately, the more that they take, they keep on just depleting their body's own natural stores of kind of their firefighters in their body, the good EPA, GLA, to put it out. And not to mention that it damages the gut, creates leaky gut, which again, more inflammation. So you can see how it's like a downward spiral or a snowball that can kind of just keep on building on its own and through there. So that is kind of the process of the NSAIDs. So, and then also that's why people become, again, completely dependent on the drug to manage it, because as soon as you stop taking it, it just comes right back on again. So if like the NSAIDs are kind of like, you want to think like guns that kind of like are putting it out, like your steroids are going to be like your big cannons, really to be avoided at all costs, really in only emergency situations, or when they're, like I said, the inflammation is just so far out of control that you are really like not able to function. I don't see it as much anymore, but earlier, you know, in my career 10 plus years ago, people would kind of just be going in for, oh, I'm going to, you know, go on a golf trip, or I'm going to go on a ski trip, or I'm going to go travel to Europe and be walking around, time for my cortisone shot. And it's like, no, you don't want to do that, because it actually degrades the cartilage. It actually speeds up the process of your bones degenerating, you know, the tendons, the tissues, and all that. And it doesn't solve the problem, but yeah, they're great. They're effective. People will be like, woohoo, I skied all those 3 days, but it's like, but structurally there's still imbalances. There's still inflammation, you know, you're weak, or all these different things. And if you're not addressing that, you're just speeding up the process. So there is a time and a place for them, but done, you know, repeatedly, it's just not good. Really should not be getting steroid injections more like than within a shortened period of like 3 months. It's way too close to be getting them together. But steroids are not good. Just today I was talking with a client who had one, you know, oh, my shoulder was there. And, you know, she just went in for the shoulder, you know, to get injection. It was like, yeah, it helped with the inflammation, but it still didn't solve the problem. It didn't solve her bad posture, didn't solve her kind of her weak shoulders. So again, what's happening again as she's going back to exercising and stuff like that, the problem's back, the pain's back again. She had a lot of calcifications in the tendon. And it's like, you know, doing a steroid injection and weakening a tendon when there's already like little granules, calcium in a tendon, is like a recipe for rotator cuff tear. And that's what I see time and time again. It was like, oh, steroid injection actually was a tipping point that could kind of make you more vulnerable to a tear. So kind of food for thought. I feel very strongly, even one of my mentors said, and I think I mentioned it before, but he was, you know, a surgeon. He would say, like, you know, when people are coming in, you know, they got knee and stuff like that, and they're wanting to get the steroid injection, he's like, it's literally like you're hitting a stopwatch until you're going to go get the joint replacement. So food for thought there. So with the steroids, they will act and they will put on this thing. But the problem is when you take a steroid, again, it knocks out your firefighters completely so that they can't do their job, that you're, again, not having, you know, that capacity to have your own innate ability to put out the inflammation there. So they cannot, again, put out those fires of inflammation. And the problem is like when you have, especially like a chronic issue where there's this constant kind of inflammation happening, and something like, you know, an autoimmune disease that causes inflammation in your lungs or joints or kidneys, like that can sometimes be effective to do the steroids and stuff like that. But they have got so many side effects. And again, to completely just like obliterate your body's own natural ability to put out the inflammation becomes really problematic. Also, too, steroids dysregulate blood sugar. And that's something that's super important. So, okay, so now we're going to go into talk about, okay, so if you're like, okay, I could take an NSAID, I could take a steroid, they act on these pathways, but what can I take naturally to, again, help either with this conversion to get more of my fighters up, to kind of put down and calm down, keep my arachidonic acid in check, and then also stop those fires from forming. So here is a chart, and we'll kind of go by it kind of bit by bit here. So when you are looking at is that you could totally, and it is so interesting that these foods, herbs, plant-based things are more effective actually than steroids and NSAIDs, because with them, we talked about this last week, they have things like bioflavonoids, antioxidant, and all these different things versus it just being extracted and kind of being made a synthetic form and through there. So this shows the foods and the herbs and the supplements. So the primary anti-inflammatory are going to be your omega-6s in through here. And those are your alpha linoleic acid in through there. So foods that are the highest in omega-3s are your flax seeds, your chia seeds, your hemp seeds, and your walnuts. Those are great. And what they need to be converted into down into these enzymes and kind of make your body's own natural ability to fight off and keep your arachidonic acid in check is an important enzyme right here called delta-6 desaturase. Don't need to memorize that, but really, really important. If you don't have this, it can't go down into this pathway. It just kind of stays stuck. Super, super important. So things that you need to help with this conversion are your B vitamins. So B3, B6, B12, vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, magnesium, biotin are super, super, super important. And the problem is a lot of people are really deficient in these things, and things that will impact this are things like, again, those trans fats, your margarines, your shortenings, all those things, your processed foods, alcohol, coffee, food additives will kind of knock this guy out, so it can't work with your omega-3s to, again, get that converted so you can have your body's own natural ability to fight off inflammation. So really, really important. Other things too, like things that will deplete B vitamins are, if your body, so one big thing is that people as we age don't make enough hydrochloric acid in our stomach to break things down. So protein deficiency, that's one thing, as well as that will also impact your B vitamin synthesis, your mineral synthesis as well, getting those being able to. Some people don't get enough magnesium because they're not consuming leafy green vegetables, or they don't have, their body doesn't have the capacity to break down those leafy vegetables if maybe they have leaky gut or they have digestive issues. If there's a gut dysbiosis, there's kind of imbalances of bacterium going on in their body, in their gut. Things like smoking, sugars are another big thing. Zinc deficiency we'll see as well when people aren't making enough hydrochloric acid. Very, very common as we age. We tend to make a lot less. Being deficient in hydrochloric acid, it's called hypochlorhydria, is a really big thing that's at a root of a lot of people's issues, because you can't break down your food, so you can't get your nutrients in. So really super important. Adrenal stress, so being super stressed out, your adrenals consume the most amount of vitamin C in your body. So if you're constantly under chronic stress, you feel like you have chronic fatigue, it'll just zap your vitamin C. So if you don't have vitamin C, again, it will impact your body's ability to fight off inflammation. So you can start to see, chronic stress, chronic fatigue, and then people, why they have pain, why they have inflammation is really important. So when we don't have, these nutrients in enough quantities, what tends to happen is that you'll see imbalances of these ratios, and we won't be able to make our body won't be able to kind of modulate and manage inflammation in our body. So we want to do these things to, again, bolster up and create kind of stronger kind of firefighters in our body so we can do this out. So you can get EPA is in from algae, organ, and fish. That could be, having fish, and again, make sure it's wild caught. They tend to say no more than 2 times a week just because there's so much mercury in, but getting, your algae is really good. They make algae supplements. It's a really fantastic way of getting it. You can also increase the conversion of your alpha linoleic acid to EPA by taking it when you take those things, is to include coconut, because coconut has something called lauric acid, and it increases that conversion tenfold. So doing something like, and I'm gonna, when I send out this repay, send you guys a recipe for something called chia porridge, and it's like literally probably the best anti-inflammatory, best way to, and it helps manage your blood sugar, but it's got chia seeds, flax seeds, you can put some walnuts in there. You can, if you have a B vitamin, complex, you can put that in there. You know, same thing with vitamin C. It's really, 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 really delicious and good. And it's got all these wonderful fats. It keeps you satiated. So again, it's really important. And which is really important. Again, managing weight, managing your blood sugar. So I'll make sure that I get that out to you guys. It's such a great way to start your day. And it's just like jam-packed of all these nutrients that your body needs to fight inflammation. So what are the right ratios of your omega-3s to your omega-6s? So it should, you know, the researchers said like 1-to-1 or 4-to-1. Ideally, I tend to think it is 3-to-1. We want to shoot for that 1-to-1 or that 3-to-1. When you have two, I don't see it happen at all unless someone's just like crazy over supplementing in omega-3s. But when you have too many omega-3s, that's where we start to see some anticoagulability. So it's like it thins your blood too much. So again, people are like, where always people think of like, oh, that's good. It's like more must be even better. And it's like, no. And I'll be sharing with you how you guys can check what your ratios are if you want to look into getting that tested, which is super important if you do struggle with things like inflammation, pain, fatigue, all those types of things. So again, we want to be shooting for ratios of the arachidonic acid to your EPA of being kind of 1.5 to 3. That's ideal. Your average American is something like 11. People with chronic illness tends to be over 15. And to be considered over unwell is like with a ratio above 10. So again, as we said before, most people are on that standard American diet, a lot of processed foods. And again, they just have ratios of omega-6s just through the roof. They're beyond that 10. They're somewhere in that 15. And you don't want to be there. And I actually have, when I work with my clients, we have a chart, a way for them to break down and see like what are their ratios of when they're eating and how they can just tweak certain things and take certain things and swap certain things so that they are balanced in that ratio. Because if you have, it's incredible the results that we see, just people making their shifts in these diets, which again, helps them not be so chronically inflamed. So their body can heal, their tissues can heal, they can have the energy. It's really, really key. It's super, super effective and so much easier than you think to kind of incorporate these things in through your diet. So let me know if you have any questions, just pop them on in. So when we don't have enough of the EPA in here, that's what's going to contribute to inflammation. And that's where, you know, supplementation can be really, really helpful. So how do we find that balance of omega-3s to omega-6s in your diet? So again, doing things like eliminating things like your, having lots of, processed foods, being mindful of your, your meat intake, your dairy intake, eggs, peanuts from your diet. You'll get plenty of arachidonic acid just from naturally what you're taking in. How you can get it too. So it's on here. So your sesame seeds, your sunflower seeds, your almond seeds, your pumpkin seeds. It's interesting. Like a lot of times when people go dairy free, and I'll be walking you guys through this in a couple of weeks of how to go gluten free and dairy free, like right, and the mistakes to avoid. People start to just like consume like tons of soy milk or like almond milk by like the cartonfuls and go loading up on almonds, and that can have the tendency to kind of throw off those ratios. So that's where, going for something like flax milk, that's what I personally drink, is super helpful. So again, everything's always about a balance in there. So sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts are great, pecans are great. Vegetable oils, which you kind of want to avoid, but things like sunflower, sapphire, soybean, and corn, those are all going to be heavy in your omega-6s. And when you have enough of these omega-6s, your body will convert them into arachidonic acid. So you don't really need to go out and make a point of consuming more of those. But the problem is when we have too much hanging around, it creates inflammation. Your body will just go ahead and just convert that arachidonic acid and it becomes very inflammatory. Right in through here. So GLA is super important and is a very potent anti-inflammatory agent, as well as with inflammation, but super important with hormone balance as well, brain function, bone formation, and optimal functioning of your immune system. So super, super important. And you can get it in things like borage oil, black currant oil is really it's really great. And evening primrose oil, those are all really wonderful things that are great forms of getting that GLA in. And just like with the conversion of the threes down from your ALA to your EPA, same thing of your linoleic acid to your GLA, you need this delta-6 desaturase enzyme. And if you don't have it, you're not going to make this conversion, and we're not going to get these firefighters to help put that out. So, and again, having excess of your alpha-linoleic acid can also trigger, if you have too much of this, it can just trigger this, goes right back down to DGLA, and then it starts to create your arachidonic acid into there. So how can you measure if you're like, okay, well, how do I know what my ratios are? There is a really simple test that you can do. It's a test that you can do at home. It's called the blood spot fatty acid test. And if you guys are interested, you can pop it in the chat, and I'll be happy to, I can give you a link to do it. It's super easy to do at home. And what happens is you just like prick your finger, you put it in on a card, it gets mailed to the lab, and they analyze it, and then it comes back and it literally breaks down, you know, all these different, you know, how much linoleic, omega-6s you have, GLA, like all these things. You start to see those ratios, so you can get a little bit more fine tune of, okay, how do we need to adjust your diet to help support you? So again, you are in that really good balance. So if that is something that you're interested, you can pop it in the chat. So you can DM me or email me, whatever you want. I'm super happy to help you with. So this is a test that I will run with my clients. Again, if they're struggling with inflammation, with fatigue, and they have that poor healing, it's really, really helpful. And again, it helps them we can really fine tune and tweak their diet to making sure that they're choosing their right omega-3 rich foods. And also if there needs to be supplementation. So many people over supplement or are taking the wrong supplements in the wrong amount. And so many people are taking like the same amount of supplements all the time, even though the demands on their body are different. Like, so we talked about, again, super stressed out adrenals, that will require, you will be so depleted in vitamin C, you will need more. And so it's like, if you're taking the same amount when, you know, we were in a different state before, you're still going to be deficient in nutrients. So that's why it's so important. Such a big fan of testing when it's appropriate. When I work with my clients, we've got a lot of scorecards and assessments, so we don't necessarily have to go straight into the testing and shell out money for that. Just taking a good history or asking really great questions, you start to see patterns. You can start to make some tweaks already that way. So we start there first, and then if need be, we can go in and do some of these tests. So again, every time that you're eating something like, you know, chia seeds or flax seeds or hemp seeds and walnuts, and then you're also having them with, you know, dense dark greens, and then also you're having these different cofactors, and through there, it really, really helps build up your body's ability to fight off inflammation. So sometimes when people have been in a state of inflammation for such a long time, you know, thinking of chronic pain, chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, and a lot of people sometimes don't even think, you know, people a lot of times think of inflammation, swollen and red, and you can see it, but you can, again, have chronic inflammation happening within your gut. If you have, you know, maybe have had an infection, or maybe you have, like, again, bacterial dysbiosis, you have something called leaky gut, anything like that's been happening for a long time. And a lot of people don't even really know they have the symptoms. That inflammation has been going on for a really long time. It will take some time to kind of tease it out. And that's where doing things like doing the supplementation, so you can really get the support in the interim, can become really, really helpful. And that's why I like to run that test, just so you can make sure that everything is dialed in, so you can get results really quickly, and making those kind of tweaks specifically to what your body needs. And again, remember, if you don't have enough of these B vitamins, C vitamins, these minerals, you cannot convert this alpha-linoleic acid from these good foods into EPA, no matter how much you consume. So, which means that you'll be low in EPA, which means that you cannot balance out your omega-6s. And then, so again, we start to see the fires, inflammation brewing, and then also that really puts people at risk for autoimmune issues and stuff like that. So again, typical American diet, your bacons and eggs breakfast, or, grabbing your breakfast bagel sandwich and stuff like that. Or each time, people are, oh, just have a slice of pizza. Oh, it doesn't really matter. But it really does add up. And when you're constantly kind of bombarding your body with all these inflammatory things, and if you don't have a reserve to fight it off, that's where people stay in this constant state of inflammation, and why people wonder why they're so achy in their joints, they're so stiff, they struggle with sleeping, their digestion is totally whacked out, they're foggy in their brain, they just can't remember things. This is it. This is such a key thing. When so many people come in, this is one of the key places we start when we look at their nutrition, is what is the status of the fats that you're taking in. It's huge. It's number one. Before we kind of do anything else, it's like, okay, we got to get this in order. And this is such a key piece, and it makes such a big difference. People feel so much better. So again, the damage is not just what you see, but it is the unseen. And the tricky thing is, when we don't see it, we don't really tend to do anything about it. And so if you have, an autoimmune disease, you're eating inflammatory fats, is like further the destructive damage of the affected tissue. So things like to your thyroid gland, to the lining of your gut, to the cells in your pancreas that make insulin. It's really, really huge. So it's really important. Again, it's not just the anti-inflammatory foods, but it really is a lifestyle, managing your stress, making sure that you're having the right size of exercise. You're not exercising too much, but you're doing the appropriate amount for your body, especially if you are struggling with something like arthritis and you just keep on beating up your body. It just keeps on perpetuating the cycle, the systemic inflammation. It doesn't just stay localized to the tissue. That's one thing I really hope you guys take away. It's a systemic inflammation, and it affects every corner of your body. When people think of, inflammation and stuff like that, it's really important, again, like I said, to have that anti-inflammatory diet. And one disease where inflammation is sometimes not so obvious, but it's cardiovascular disease, and commonly, heart disease into there. So a lot of people think that cholesterol is bad. Okay, that's like, fats are bad, cholesterol is bad, and that it is the reason behind heart disease. But actually, the research shows that cholesterol is just a symptom of out of control inflammation. So cholesterol is actually a very potent anti-inflammatory that our body creates to manage inflammation. But the unfortunate thing is that when there is inflammation to your blood vessels, it causes damage to the lining. So then what happens is that which is often happened by things like trans fats, oxidized fats, and other processed fats in your diet, the vessels of the lining become super sticky. And then once they're sticky, you can start to get a buildup of calcium. And then what happens, and then, there's other methods, but then what your body tries to do, like a patch-up job to it. And that's what it basically does, is it grabs the cholesterol, your LDLs, and it starts to patch up the walls and through there. And then over time, they become really stiff and sticky. So cholesterol isn't the problem. So many people become so fat phobic that, okay, no cholesterol, but really when we see elevated levels of cholesterol, it's really oftentimes due to inflammation, sometimes thyroid issues, and a lot of times blood sugar dysregulation into there. So let's talk about vitamin E and curcumin, which is turmeric. So these are super powerful. Love them. So curcumin is the active ingredient in turmeric, which is that yellow urban spice that's very, you see it in Indian food a lot. It's great. I absolutely love it. It's beneficial for your liver, for cancer, for all sorts of inflammatory diseases, autoimmune diseases. And turmeric and vitamin E decrease the production of the arachidonic acid in through here, which makes control inflammation. So when you take vitamin E and turmeric, it actually has the same effect as taking steroids, but without the side effect. Turmeric is great if you take it with some ginger, black pepper. It makes your body even absorb it even more. And then there's also a supplement called Relief Plus that has it. It's super good. I love it. And I mean, you can put turmeric in everything. I love it in my salads. You can have it, you can make something called golden milk with it, with a little bit of coconut milk with turmeric. It's great. It really helps with your serotonin too. And then another herb that you could take that also has similar effects to steroid is something called licorice root. But the only thing is you have to be careful because licorice root can actually elevate your blood pressure a little bit. So if you have issues with blood pressure, it's something that you'd want to talk with your doctor and stuff like that, or just something that you manage. It tastes so good that some people kind of just keep on taking it. So it's just something with just a little bit, but it's actually very, very helpful. And so those are herbs and are nutrients that are super, super helpful. And again, fighting the inflammation into there. So, when we think of the steroids and the NSAIDs into there, it really only acts on that kind of like the one spot right in through here. And again, it smashes out our own ability to help modulate our own inflammatory process in through there. So when you're thinking of, okay, I could take steroids and I take NSAIDs, or I could have these delicious, rich foods in my daily diet to kind of build up my body's own reserves to, again, manage the inflammation that is coming to me that we experience on a day-to-day basis is very, very, very important. And then foods also that fight the inflammation through here. So fighting kind of this kind of low-grade inflammation where, normally the NSAIDs act, things like ginger, vitamin E, again, your EPA, so that'll be kind of those in through there, and your zinc. And then things that help with kind of bigger, huge, big inflammation. So ginger, vitamin E, EPA, zinc, and then selenium. And selenium is something that you get from Brazil nuts. So having a couple a day of Brazil nuts are great. Selenium is also really important when it comes to thyroid health. So Brazil nuts are really big there. So anti-inflammatory foods, what are the best ones? So berries are really, really good. One of your best antioxidants. Grapes and stuff like that for vegetables, your greens, your leafy greens are really, really, really important. And again, for condiments, we already talked about your ginger, your turmeric, garlic are really, really good. For nuts, your walnuts have the highest amount of omega-3s than any other nut. Anti-inflammatory seeds are going to be your chia, your hemp, your pumpkin, and your flax. And then non-gluten grains can be good anti-inflammatory, but just make sure that you don't have insulin resistance with that, because those starches can really spike up your blood sugar. And so again, this will be a preview. We're going to go into this at depth and talk about blood sugar a little bit later, but how if you have insulin resistance is if like you've got belly fat, low energy, especially after meals, you're hungry or full, or even after you eat a full meal, you have a mid-afternoon slump, your difficulty focusing, you get kind of hangry and cranky if you don't eat. And if you have insulin resistance, I think it's really important to kind of stay and avoid those grains for a while until it becomes more in control. And we'll talk about that in depth later. So in the inflammatory herbs, we talked about it a little bit. Another good one is green tea, which is really good, and you can get from matcha. And then let's see what else, herbs. So some other herbs you may not have, but you could get from, and I'll pop it in there, mountain rose herbs is something called stinging nettles, which is really good. You can get nettle seed. It's super great anti-inflammatory, and it's an antioxidant with a really high mineral content, which is really great. And you can put it in your smoothies or kind of make in nut butters and stuff like that. Other things like oregano, rosemary, we talked about, like licorice, slippery elm is really good. They're also really good and soothing for the stomach, which is great. Probiotics can be really anti-inflammatory because, again, they help balance that your microbiome, which is super important. Things like glucosamine and chondroitin can be really helpful for joints as well. Essential oils can be super helpful. CBDs and stuff, CBD oils, or even just other essential oils can be really helpful and anti-inflammatory, and you can put them on the skin or you can ingest them. So just to kind of wrap things up here. So we have, okay, things that are anti-inflammatory and things that are pro-inflammatory, just to kind of have a kind of wrap up here. So anti-inflammatory are going to be your essential fatty acids that we talked about, your omega-3s, your omega-6s, your fish oils, your vitamin E, your bioflavonoids, vitamins, minerals, cofactors, your fresh fruit, vegetables, seeds, and sprouted. And then we want to kind of stay away from things like red meats, eggs, dairy, eggs, peanuts, processed foods, oils, alcohol, and coffee. Those are all big ones that we want to avoid, as well as the hydrogenated fats, your processed fats, your margarine, your mayonnaise, trans fats, You want to make sure that, you're not cooking your oils above 118. That tends to oxidize them. And that can really throw things off. And then this is kind of blurry, so I'll pop this in the group, but this is just a breakdown of ratios of your omega, your EPA, your DHA, your omega-6s to 3s, and how much is actually in it. And it's interesting that you can get a lot from flax seeds. People think that, you get a whole lot from your fishes and stuff like that. But, getting some chia and stuff like that is such a great way to get it. So that is kind of the recap there. And then I'll answer some questions. And if you have any, just go ahead and pop them in the chat there. So when someone asks, what are the best diets for anxiety? So it's so important when, again, it's such a loaded question, like what is the best diet for this? It really starts with you got to ask the why, and you got to get to what is really going on to cause the anxiety. And that could be happening from a lot of different things. There could be neurotransmitter imbalances. Again, there could be inflammation going on there, physical, external stressors, mental stressors happening in their body, an acute infection, all those types of things. Gut dysbiosis is a really, really big thing. Some people even have, genetic SNPs that make them more prone to anxiety, or they can't convert certain nutrients to other nutrients. So then they start to get a backup. One is called the GAD, and it affects something called GABA, which is like your calming neurotransmitter. So if they can't make that conversion to GABA, they'll have issues. So there's a lot of different interventions you can do nutritionally to support that. But again, when people are just masking it with pills or want this kind of cookie cutter approach and think this one thing is going to do it, they get kind of stuck and they get super frustrated. Do you have a sample diet menu plan that we can follow? You'll have to ask that, like clarifying, what are you looking for that, Susan? And then also, so things like you're looking at your B vitamins are really, really important when it comes to anxiety. So a lot of people have B12 deficiencies. If they have the MTHFR SNP, that can impact that as well. Also to nutritional support. So making sure you have your foundation. So like making sure, again, addressing any sort of gut dysbiosis, bacterial imbalances. If people have something like leaky gut, no matter what you're putting in your body, you're not going to be absorbing anything. Are there any undetected food allergies? All those things can contribute to things like anxiety. So many things, so many people. Gluten is a really big one. For more people, it actually manifests in brain symptoms than it does in actually constipation, bloating, and so forth, but people just don't know. And this is something, again, working from the start when people really, really getting the gut dialed and making sure that their digestion is functioning proper. Blood sugar balance is a really, really, really big one. When there's dysregulation of your blood sugar, you'll see it impact your serotonin, your dopamine, your GABA. It'll stress out your hormones, which again can lead to feelings of anxiety, leading to brain fog and stuff like that. So again, when you work from the foundation, you can find what is right. And it is somewhat on an individual basis for like across the board of like what is the best thing? Because she threw out like Mediterranean diet, this thing. I think a whole food plant-based diet is really great. Cutting out your sugars, cutting out your processed foods. Everybody's going to be a little bit different of meat, no meat. So really kind of tweaking it. And that's where it becomes with working with somebody to help walk you. And she said, oh, it's so overwhelming, know what to do. And yes, I don't know if it's the choices that are overwhelming or if it's the actual putting it into practice that is overwhelming. But when I work with my clients, this is something that we walk through step by step, and I give them recipes, but also something that they'll want to eat that is culturally aligned with them, also aligned with them with what time they have, the resources, and all those types of things. Because, a lot of times people will just, oh, here's a menu plan here, but you're like, I don't even like these foods, or this isn't consistent with how I cook or how I do that. So, and also I think when that's where functional lab testing can become really, really important. When I work with my clients, they have scorecards and assessments. So we do have one for brain health and neurotransmitter health to really see what's going on. I think that's where maybe going to something like 23andMe and also getting your you're looking at your genes to make sure you don't have those SNPs can be really, really helpful. And that can be the missing piece for a lot of people if they've struggled with a lot of things and things just haven't clicked and worked. It's getting that really individualized approach is really, really helpful. And that's what I've seen. And I'll be doing a special masterclass on like the biomarkers that you want to look for when you go and get, blood chem done, your blood drawn and stuff like that, because there's so much information that is basically showing so much of what's actually going on in your body, how healthy your tissues are, how everything's kind of functioning together. When you go to most conventional docs, they do it at a different range, which is just kind of the conventional range versus the optimal range. And it's just kind of high, low, high, low, high, low, how they read it versus looking at how things actually work together. And it really tells a really great story. So I'll be doing a masterclass at the end of next month on that, about what are some of the hidden gems that are in your blood work. And if you haven't gotten blood work, just the value of getting it done, so you can really get a peek at what the heck is going on in your body, why you're struggling with maybe weight loss, energy, fatigue, anxiety, healing, achy joints, on being unable to sleep, motivation. All those things are super important. And then another question that someone asked was, is it better to do full fats versus low fat? And I'm coming from a place of doing Weight Watchers, which is counting points. So again, they're more concerned, I think, with calorie in, calorie out, and maybe not necessarily how nutrient dense what you're eating is. So, and we'll talk about this more in depth at the end of the series. It's so important. I got so many questions about it, of like going gluten-free, going dairy-free. What is it all about? How do you do it? Does it really make that big of a difference? Yes, there's so much information and research out there. I think just like anything, when things become a fad, it becomes kind of adulterated and it gets really, really confusing. And then also too, people like, oh, go gluten-free, but then they're just now getting these like weird processed products that have tons of sugar. So, and not getting the nutrients. So that's what the downside of it is. But when it comes to fat, I really don't. Dairy is very, very inflammatory. It also has the casein in it, which a lot of people have a sensitivity to. But not only that, it's been shown in so much of the research and literature that really tends to be an underlying causative factor of a lot of autoimmune issues in there, especially with thyroid and some adrenal issues in there. It's very, very acidic. So this increases inflammation. And when we talk about the bone health in a couple weeks, when you have that imbalance of acidity in your body and your body's not as alkaline, it's going to go to your bones and go and extract those minerals out to try to buffer how acidic your tissues are. Also from the proteins, it again, so acidic in through there. And really hard on your body to process. So when people are thinking of like, ooh, yeah, milk's got so much calcium, it's like the calcium to phosphorus ratio is so off, and then it's so acidic and the proteins in there. It's like the work that your body has to do to process it, you're really not getting ahead. If you're doing it for the calcium value, there's such better ways for you to get calcium. And again, like I said, it's a really common food allergy and very, very inflammatory. So again, my suggestion would be, I don't think other than if you're trying to save yourself calories, doesn't matter too much. You can probably find, different things one way or another, but I would say it's one of those things that it's probably best to avoid overall. Dairy also cross-reacts, has cross-reactive autoantibodies that actually attack the cells of your pancreas that make your insulin through there. So it has, and again, same thing with an autoimmune disorder of the thyroid, Hashimoto's. It's fine that both gluten and thyroid cross-react, and it has antibodies with those. So those are kind of non-negotiables if you have any sort of thyroid disorder that you do not want. Even just the smallest flack can really set off an autoimmune cascade within your body. So that is kind of fats in a nutshell, information in a nutshell, what you can do to support your body nutritionally by the foods to eat. Hopefully you got a good picture of, the process of inflammation, how it happens, what happens when you take an NSAID, what happens when you take steroids, and what are some of the foods and the nutrients that you can take that act even better than when you those NSAIDs and steroids, and the importance of having that good balance of your omega-6s to your omega-3s. And again, if you are, I will send this out as a replay in a couple days. And also I'll put a recipe in there for chia pudding, and I think a really good green jig. I think those are the two that I'll be sharing this week, just to give you guys a good jump start on that. And if you guys are interested in maybe doing that testing your omegas, or you are looking for any kind of support, and again, you know, how to eat, supporting you, and kind of uncovering what is the best kind of diet plan for you and your needs, you can go ahead and pop it in the chat, shoot me a DM or an email. I'm happy to have a conversation with you to see how I can best support you and resources. And yeah, so have a wonderful rest of your day. And then next week, we will be talking about food sensitivities and food allergens and how that relates to inflammation and pain in your body. It was an excellent question I had gotten a couple weeks ago. So it was just perfect to work into the series. And again, one of the things when I'm working with somebody, and again, they have inflammation, just everybody, it's working through these kind of pillars, is checking what is the status and the balance of their fats, looking at, you know, food allergens that are creating inflammation, looking at their blood sugar, those are really, really good things, and looking at how their gut is functioning, and also their immune system as well. Because when those things are out of balance, no matter what you do, you'll kind of just be at a place of being stuck and not healing the way your body should. So have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend, and I will see you guys next Thursday. We'll be a little bit early. We're going to switch it up, and we'll start our Thursday talks at 4. So thank you so much for joining. And if you have any questions, pop them in. I would love to know what your kind of key takeaways are, and I will see you guys soon. Okay, bye.